Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my first Friday reads of 2020. It is Am Reading for Friday, January 3rd, 2020. Getting kind of redundant here. One thing I don't want to do is spend a lot of time talking about wrapping up 2019. I have my literary newsletter down below, the link to it down below. I write a monthly literary newsletter where I put in snippets of the book reviews of the books I read. I have a book pick, a book meme, bookish news that caught my fancy, some other cool stuff as well. There is one book I have to talk about that I thought I'd be finished with in 2019, but alas, I am not. It is Beyond CHRISMUKKAH, the Christian-Jewish interfaith family in the United States by Samira Mehta. This is a social history of interfaith marriages between Jews and Christians in America. I decided to take my time with it a little bit, in part because I don't want to pressure myself about reading, especially right off the bat in the new year. And also the writing is a little dry, I think. It's hard to grasp onto in some sentences. I'm like, whoa. The general premise of the beginning is talking about interfaith marriage for Jews and for Catholics as a way to assimilate into a broader American society, which is generally seen as Protestant. And given what I've read in history, Jewish history books about America, it all makes sense to me, although the correlation, I think, between American secularism and American Protestantism can be a little bit murky sometimes. And first of all, of course, I mean, some sort of mainline Protestantism, and Protestant religion is the largest religion in America, and there are several iterations of it. But here she's mostly talking about the idea, I think, of Protestantism as more individual-based, about individual, quieter faith, where it's almost like the ethnic output has become your stereotypical Midwestern Jersey letterhead, you know, football-wearing stuff. Ooh! And obviously I'm the Jew in that scenario. This is completely foreign to me. And indeed, Jews are characterized as, especially Jews and Catholics to a lesser extent, are loud and foreign and ethnic, and in broader culture, intermarriage is seen as good because it's about assimilation and about the kids giving up that weird lifestyle and becoming more American and Protestant. And I do believe there is some correlation between American secularism and Protestantism, but I feel like maybe she should go into more detail about that, or it's not always so clear-cut because, you know, being Protestant is still a religion. You know, in Judaism there is, you know, such a thing as Jewish religion and Jewish culture, like Jewish ethnicity, but I don't know, it's so different and so particular that I don't think it's a direct comp to what Protestantism is, especially when it is being, in America, assimilated, you know, mainline Protestantism. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. She goes through some pop culture, like shows from the 70s and the 80s when intermarriage rates were skyrocketing, and so there were shows and such about especially Jewish and Catholic marriages. There was apparently a storyline in Little House on the Prairie I had no idea about, but that was with Protestant. And there's also, she also goes into you know, the religious responses, which are far less welcoming, especially in the beginning, like mid-century or something, when I guess interfaith marriage started to creep a little bit, and then by the 70s it's, you know, really starting to grow. So ultimately they do become more accepting just because you can't really stem the tide. But the chapter I'm getting into now is about creating a interfaith family from like a Jewish lens, like, you know, one religion interfaith family. So that'll be maybe one of the most personally relatable chapters. Otherwise, I don't know, it's been kind of weird reading this as the child of interfaith marriage, because all I'm hearing about from her research is how priests and rabbis would never ever officiate a wedding together, and apparently that's what my parents did in 1981. And also, you know, the big stereotype is that the brash Jewish boy from New York should get with a quiet, wholesome Protestant girl from the Midwest. And in my family, it's my mother who is Jewish, who was from the Midwest, and my father, who is Italian Catholic from New York. It's hard not to see the bigotry in these pro-assimilationist messages, which is interesting for me to confront as an adult, because as a child I think I drank the Kool-Aid about how assimilation and the melting pot are a good thing, you know, the American myth of all of us basically becoming the same, or everybody being welcome, but really it's about everybody becoming the same, and it's not that simple, but you can tell that there are messages out there about a right way to be, and I can see why Jews, particularly in the wake of the Holocaust, might not be so keen on that. Anyway, I'm already rambling enough. I'll report back later. The next thing I have to talk about is my first personal reading project of the year, except it suddenly took a turn into being a BookTube-related project of the year. I had the idea last year to read all of Toni Morrison's novels in chronological order this year, and apparently so did Hannah at Hannah in the Books, and she graciously invited me to be part of her initiative, Toni Morrison 2020. So now I'm sitting in the Voxer group and eager for another BookTube experience discussing books, and I already have the first book, The Bluest Eye, out from the library. I believe there'll be reading one book per month, which has generally been my goal as well. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm really excited. And Hannah put out a great, thoughtful video about the project, which I'll link down below. Speaking of BookTube reading news, another January development is that Robert from Barter Hordes emailed the BookTube Prize judges with suggestions for the long lists for fiction and nonfiction this year, and whoa, that's a lot of books. I've been so excited about this for so long, but suddenly I feel like a deer in the headlights as I'm wondering, how am I going to vote for books? Because the whole thing is that he gave us about 200 books, and we have to choose 96 of them. This process is actually still a week or so away. We might be adding more books to the possibilities list in the meantime. But I can't believe I haven't thought about this before, and I guess I'm sending an SOS out to the other judges, but how are you going to choose what you're going to vote for? I know it shouldn't be just a list of what I want to read personally, of course, but I'm trying to think of what I think should be best, especially when Robert already did all the work of aggregating best reviewed books. Maybe he should just pick the 48 from those. I don't know, maybe I could just go to the LitHub bookmarks page and see what I think of, I don't know, at least what they put on those pages. I'm really curious about what other people are going to do for this. So that about covers it for me now. Time keeps marching on in early 2020. I just came back from a flash choir rehearsal. We're just doing an impromptu thing at my synagogue for Shabbat, and afterwards I met my sister who was in town for a conference, and that was really a lot of fun. Although for some reason I was compelled to buy dishwasher detergent at CVS, and then I left it on the metro. It's so embarrassing. Meanwhile, this weekend, after Shabbat, my parents are also having this big party in Baltimore, which I'll be going to, although my schedule's all going to be all sorts of crazy all around it because I don't drive, and so I'm reliant on trains back and forth from Baltimore to DC, and the timing isn't really working out all that great, so I might not be able to go home until Monday, and that'll be me going straight to work, which I'll miss my time on Sunday for hanging out with my cat and reading, of course. I'm sure I'll make do, though. So yeah, it seems like more than enough going on for me, but I really am especially excited to be doing some reading projects with BookTube right out the gate of this new decade. So thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.